In this how-to video, I will explain how to create a new retailer account, as well as what many of the field definitions and possible values are. We will begin by going into routes. Routes is a destination, which is a drop point, which refers to a physical location and therefore refers to the retailer account. Once I click on routes, you are presented with a list of all your route accounts, or alternatively known as retailer accounts. To begin adding a new account, you need to go into the details screen of an existing account. So I'll simply click on details on the first account, which takes you to the details screen. I will then select the select drop-down menu and select new. It will ask you if you are sure you want to create a new account. This is simply a check to make sure that you did not accidentally select the new option from the drop-down menu by mistake. So I'll select yes. You are now presented with a new retailer account. You will notice that a new shop account number has automatically been created by the system and cannot be altered. The cursor will be flashing in the ABN field. It is important and good practice to make sure that you record the ABN number for all your retailer accounts, as Australian tax law stipulates that an ABN must be displayed on the invoice if you are generating invoices in the value exceeding $250. It is good practice to use the Tab key on your keyboard to advance to the next field. So by pressing the Tab key, we'll now ask for the trading name. Tab across to legal name. Tab across to the address. This is the business's physical address. Tab across to, when you press tab, it will move the cursor across to the same as delivery address. More often than not, the postal address will be similar or exactly the same to the delivery address. So by pressing the space bar or enter key, it will make the postal address the same. In the event that the postal address is different, you can simply just click and type in the box, the post office box, or the alternate address. Next, we have the Australia Post uplink. This is a uplink to an Australia Post database that contains every postcode in Australia. You simply begin by typing the name of the suburb. It is important to continuously type, as pausing will cause the system to assume you are beginning to type a new word. Once the selection has been reached, it will be highlighted in blue. You can then either fine-tune your search by using the arrow keys on your keyboard, or simply using the mouse cursor to scroll, and then to select, or press the enter key will select as well. The box you see which the cursor is flashing in right now is the suburb for the physical address. The second half here, where you see the suburb, state and postcode, is that for the postal address. Once I press the Tab key, it will move across to the phone number. You can also tab and record a fax number, a mobile number, an email address, which is mandatory if the invoice delivery method up here is set to email. and then a contact person. Tab across to the notes field where you may store any number of notes regarding this retailer. This is for your records only and is not printed on any report. Down the bottom section here, you'll notice that the system automatically started an invoice period for this retailer, which will begin with the start date of your current invoice period. It will then end along with all other retailer accounts when you close off the period at the end of the week. This cross at this tick box here, invoice run active, just demonstrates that the current invoice that you see there is currently in operation and has not yet been finalized. This automatically gets crossed and uncrossed by your system as it conducts its billing runs. The only time this ever manually gets interacted with is in the event that you are manually creating an invoice for your own purpose. Across here, you've got some buttons for producing invoices, or the detail button to take you further into that invoice to see the sales items and payments. Across the top here, you've got the status, which only has two values, true and false. If you select false, the account will be archived and become hidden from the list that you saw when we entered the route screen. So when a retailer becomes cancelled or change of ownership, you will eventually, once they've paid up, move the status to false to archive that account away. The invoice delivery method has three options. Print, if you need to have the invoice sent to your printer. Email, if it gets emailed out. And if you do not bill for any publications, then the option would be none. A batch print group for delivery. This can be used, it can be any word or number created by the business. And what this will do is break up the run sheet and delivery dockets into groups. An example of this will be where you have a business that has drivers that do shop deliveries as part of their run, and you need to print or batch the shops together for each of those drivers. Alternately, where you have depots that operate one half of the depot for one particular area and another half of the depot for another area, again, similar situation, you can create the print groups to physically separate the run sheet and delivery dockets into those groups for easier handling. Similarly, the print groups, most often this is divided into a Friday group, which contains all the retailers that do not trade on a Saturday or Sunday and needs to have their returns form printed on a Friday to be sent out before the weekend. Then you can break up your return groups into, once again, if you need to break them into areas, or alternatively, you can break them into days. If you deliver returns forms on Saturdays and Sundays, you may have a Saturday group or a Sunday group. So this can very much be set up based on your particular business's requirements, and it is for batching returns forms and only printing that group when required. Activations. These two tick boxes are used to tell the system which parts of the system the account will be active in. If they receive newspapers, you need to activate them for newspapers, and if they receive magazines, they need to be activated for magazines. Failing to activate them in any part of the system they require will simply mean that the shop account does not show up for you to be able to use in that part of the system. Next, we look at uncontracted sellers. This option is purely for telling the system whether you as the agent are billing the retailer for that publisher's publications or whether the publisher will be billing them. By ticking the box, you will be telling the system that your business will be billing that retailer for that publisher's publications, and it will ensure that all that publisher's products are built for through your system. If the box is unticked, it will assume that the publisher is billing that retailer directly and therefore will not produce any sales items in the invoice. You have some sales reports and statement options over the side here. And then lastly, we'll look at the route ID. It is very important to program this part of the system correctly, as this tells iNews how to connect the supplies coming from the publisher download file into your system and how to match the supply to the correct retailer. The route ID simply gets entered in here. Both West Australian and Sunday Times IDs get entered in this section together. When you've entered a route ID, a new line is created below it, ready for you to add more route IDs. The next three boxes across simply tells the system which truck drop the supply comes on. For majority of businesses, your Monday to Friday, there's usually only a single truck. And on the weekends, the supply for that particular store may either arrive on the first truck or the second truck, or there's, in some situations, you may want to use a third, or there's D for direct. If the shop receives a direct supply from the publisher, you would select D. The returns hide box is usually used where any supplies for that particular route ID is not to appear on the returns form, and that is usually beneficial in certain circumstances where it's required. The route name is generally used for schools. So where you have set up a retail account for a school for the purpose of distributing newspapers for teachers, you may add the teacher's name to the route name. What this will do is, if you have newspapers going to a school for 3 different teachers, you will have 3 different route IDs, 3 different teachers, and the end result will be that the system will produce a single delivery docket for the school, but has a breakup of the quantity for each individual teacher. Lastly, you've got the D button on the end here in the event that you need to delete a particular route ID from the system. It is important to understand that if you are retiring an old account because of a ownership change in a business, you must delete the route ID before you can reassign it to the new account, as duplicate route IDs are not permitted. And that concludes this how-to.